A single photograph has been doing the rounds in tennis circles all through July. Once you know the backstory, it is easy to see why people keep sharing it. In the frame is a 21-year-old from the Philippines, racket still in her hand, standing on the same clay courts where her career first took shape. Next to her is a man whose name is literally built into the walls of the academy she trains at, Rafael Nadal, 22-time Grand Slam champion, the sport's undisputed king of clay, someone famously selective about where he invests his time. And yet, once again, his focus has landed on this one player. Around the tour, one question keeps coming up. Why her? Why this particular moment? And what is actually being worked on before the year's final major? There is more going on here than most casual fans realize, and by the end of this you will have a clear picture of what Alex Eala has riding on the weeks ahead as the US Open approaches. The strange part is how neatly every piece of this story fits together. The timing, the people involved, the history behind it. It reads less like a coincidence and more like a plot someone carefully engineered, except none of it was staged. To understand why this moment carries so much weight, it helps to rewind to the very start, and the start was nothing glamorous. This began in a country with essentially no tennis pipeline, no track record of producing tour-level talent, nothing that would have made anyone predict a Filipino kid cracking the world's top 30. Eala was simply a young girl with a racket, coached from an early age by her grandfather, rallying day after day with her brother, quietly laying groundwork that nobody outside the family paid any attention to. A breakthrough result in France eventually got her noticed, and soon after came a life-changing offer, a scholarship to Rafael Nadal's Academy on the island of Mallorca. At just 13, she left home for Spain, her brother alongside her, her parents remaining in the Philippines and placing their trust in a decision that must have felt both exciting and frightening at once. Sending a child that far from everything she knew, to chase a dream with no local precedent, is a genuinely heavy ask for any family. She stuck with it. Years spent training on the clay of Mallorca turned her from a talented junior into something more substantial. She absorbed the academy's demanding daily grind, the belief that champions are shaped by unglamorous repetition long before anyone is watching. Early starts, gym sessions, video breakdowns of footwork and shot choice, all layered on top of ordinary teenage life spent far from her parents. She has admitted in interviews that bumping into Nadal in the academy hallways still rattles her, that the nerves have never really gone away no matter what she has achieved since. That honesty says something real. Underneath the composure she shows on court, she is still someone who grew up watching a legend being built in real time, while she herself was learning to keep her ball toss steady. By 2023, when she collected her academy diploma, tennis was already starting to take notice. In a moment nobody could have scripted, it was IGA Swiatek, invited specifically by Nadal, who handed Eala that diploma. One player just starting her climb, the other already a 5-time major winner, sharing a stage that would end up mattering far more than either of them likely realized at the time. Move ahead to 2025, and Eala entered the Miami Open as a wild card ranked outside the top 100. By the end of the tournament, she had knocked out a former Grand Slam champion, beaten the reigning Australian Open winner, and then met Swiatek herself in the quarterfinals, the same player who had handed her that diploma 2 years before. Eala won in straight sets. It was the kind of storyline that seems almost too perfect, the student surpassing the moment, the academy's brightest new prospect stepping into the spotlight. Nadal, watching from a distance as he tends to with his academy's rising players, publicly congratulated her, a small gesture that showed just how closely he still follows what happens on those courts, long after retiring himself. That Miami run alone would have made for a career highlight, an unranked wild card grinding through 5 matches against former champions and established top 10 players. But Eala used it as a launchpad rather than treating it as a ceiling. Over the following year, she kept building, working through the clay season, training under Tony Nadal during preparation, and gradually moving up the rankings, even through periods where results were not always kind to her. Fast forward to this summer, and the story becomes genuinely compelling. Eala arrived at Wimbledon seeded for the first time in her Grand Slam career and produced the best run of her life, including another win over defending champion Swiatek, this time in round 3. A result so fitting that commentators kept bringing up the diploma ceremony from years before. She advanced to the fourth round, further than any Filipino player, man or woman, had ever reached at a major. For a nation of more than 100 million, many of whom had never followed tennis before, this became must-see viewing. Streets emptied, social feeds lit up, and almost overnight a new national obsession took hold. The kind where people who had never watched a match before suddenly understood what a breakpoint meant. She had already built momentum heading into grass season, winning her first WTA title at Birmingham just weeks before Wimbledon started. So this was not a one-off surge, but the peak of a genuinely strong run of form. Then came a loss to Jasmine Paolini, a tight three-set match that ended her run. What followed was not exactly criticism, but a very precise diagnosis from one of the greatest players the sport has ever seen. Martina Navratilova, working as a broadcast analyst during the tournament, was direct about the one weakness still holding Eala back: her serve, which she described as soft and easy for an aggressive returner to attack, especially on the second delivery. Navratilova noted that Eala's first serve speed sat in a modest range despite her physical frame, suggesting she had far more power available. She also raised something less obvious: that Eala, one of the tour's few left-handers, was not fully using the natural angles a lefty serve creates against right-handed opponents, often serving into an opponent's strength instead of pulling them wide. It read less like criticism and more like a scouting note. The sort of comment that only gets made because the analyst genuinely believes in the talent underneath the flaw. Other analysts flagged the same pattern, pointing out that Eala's serve placement was too predictable, repeatedly targeting similar spots instead of varying locations the way elite servers do to keep returners guessing. For a player with her physical tools, that kind of predictability eventually gets punished by a sharp returner, and Paolini, known for her excellent return game, did exactly that. This is where Nadal re-enters the story. Few players in history understand the value of a lefty serve better than he does. His entire game was partly built around that exact weapon, the way his spin dragged opponents off the court and opened angles a right-hander could never replicate. He spent 2 decades refining that shot, and he still shapes the coaching approach at the academy carrying his name. So when reports surfaced that Eala was back in Mallorca this month, training with the coaching staff and spending time with people close to Nadal, tennis fans and commentators quickly connected the dots. Online chatter about this training block has grown loud, with many speculating that the long-awaited serve overhaul might finally be happening, led by the academy itself and possibly Nadal directly, the very person who solved this exact puzzle decades earlier. This would not be the first time Nadal has taken a personal interest in Eala's progress. Their paths have crossed at the academy for years, and she has spoken about how surreal those interactions still feel, admitting she still gets nervous around him no matter how much success she has had. Before this season began, the two had a one-on-one practice session she later called unforgettable, and Nadal has openly praised her biggest wins as they happened. None of this confirms a formal, publicized intervention this time, and nobody at the academy has made any official announcement. But the pattern is hard to ignore. A champion whose legacy was built on lefty power, watching another left-handed talent get exposed on that exact front, right when she has the ranking, confidence, and platform to actually fix it. The timing lines up almost perfectly. Eala faces a short, packed hard-court stretch before the US Open, starting with the Wimbledon DC Open in late July, followed quickly by the National Bank Open in Toronto, one of the tour's biggest non-major events, before an appearance at the Stars of the Open exhibition in New York alongside several of the sport's most followed young players. Each of these events is effectively a live trial for whatever changes come out of this training block, a chance to see whether her serve looks different, whether placement patterns shift, and whether the extra power Navratilova insisted was untapped finally shows up on the speed gun. Every match in Washington and Toronto becomes a data point, letting anyone watching track first serve percentage, average speed, and placement compared with the version of Eala who played at Wimbledon just weeks earlier. Fans online are already comparing footage from her Mallorca practice sessions against her Wimbledon matches, hunting for small clues: a changed toss height, a different grip, anything hinting at real adjustment beneath the surface. What often gets overlooked in discussions of Eala's game is that talent or tennis IQ was never the issue. Even her critics, Navratilova included, have praised her court sense, footwork, and ability to problem-solve mid-match in a way that feels advanced for her age. She has drawn comparisons, fair or not, to the relentless competitive streak Nadal built his career on. The refusal to accept that a point, match, or season is over just because things look tough. The one thing missing, according to nearly everyone who has analyzed her recent defeats, is a serve capable of matching the rest of her game. A shot that functions as an actual weapon rather than just a way to begin the rally. Fix that, and her results against the tour's very best, the players capable of exploiting a weak delivery the way Paolini did, could look completely different. That is really what is at stake in this quiet training stretch in Mallorca. It is not about one tournament or one shot. It is about whether someone who has already beaten multiple Grand Slam champions, cracked the world's top 30, and become the biggest name in Philippine sporting history can close the final gap, separating her from the tour's true elite. If the reports about her time back at the academy hold up, if this really is a deliberate effort involving the coaching staff and possibly direct guidance from Nadal to rebuild her serve from scratch, then the Eala who takes the court in New York could look noticeably different from the one Paolini beat at Wimbledon. Picture the scenario: her first career appearance in a Grand Slam main draw as a fully seeded player. A first-round matchup shaped by a ranking now high enough to command real respect, and, for the first time, a serve that actually matches the rest of her arsenal. None of this guarantees a title. The women's tour right now is brutally deep, and every match at that level is a genuine battle. But it is exactly the kind of setup that can turn a strong story into a historic one. Consider how far she has already come. A 13-year-old leaving everything familiar behind to chase a dream in a country with no tennis tradition to speak of, building discipline on clay courts far from home, receiving her academy diploma from a Grand Slam champion, then beating that same champion twice since, pulling an entire nation into a sport it had largely ignored. And now, in the middle of a summer that already rewrote Philippine tennis history, quietly putting in repetitions alongside the greatest lefty the game has ever produced, working on the one flaw standing between her and the next level. Whatever officially comes out about this training block, and whatever unfolds once play resumes in Washington and Toronto, one thing is clear. Attention on Alexandra Eala is no longer confined to the Philippines. The whole tennis world is watching to see whether the serve Navratilova diagnosed so precisely gets fixed in time, whether her natural lefty advantage finally becomes the weapon everyone has expected, and whether the girl who once needed an invitation just to enter that academy in Mallorca is on her way to becoming one of its defining success stories. There is something almost full circle about it. A kid who arrived knowing no one, homesick and nervous, may now be the academy's biggest global success story. The face an entire continent points to when explaining why tennis suddenly matters to them. Every step further up the rankings adds another chapter to a story that already feels almost too good to be true to his. Oh, that is where things stand heading into the hardcourt swing. A rising champion, a legend quietly guiding her from the sidelines, and a US Open approaching that could end up being the moment everything comes together. Consider what a fully seeded run in New York would mean, not just for Eala, but for the momentum she has already generated for tennis in a region that never had much reason to follow the sport before. Packed watch parties back home, flags and jerseys appearing in places no one expected, a new generation of Filipino kids picking up a racket for the first time after watching her beat Iga Swiatek on grass. That kind of impact outlasts any single result. Win or lose in Washington. Win or lose in Toronto. The simple fact that people are seriously discussing whether Alexandra Eala's serve is about to become a real weapon, under the influence of the greatest lefty the sport has ever produced, says everything about how far she has already traveled.